Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brandon Crosslin. We welcome back Joshua Burch as well to recap the F3 and F2 action. Adam Lemerise, our supercars expert, will be joining us a little bit later on as well. Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
All is well.
I'm doing very well. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Glad to hear you're both doing well, and nice to be back on Grid Network after not being here over the weekend due to all of the action that we've had to cover, and taking the week off, the week before for Easter. And I'm ready to get back in, and looking forward to some great action.
Yeah, Josh, great to see you back. I just want to add on a personal note, I apologize in advance if my internet goes out. Xfinity's been doing some local enhancements today. I don't know how much things are actually going to improve, but I did lose internet for a couple of hours today, and I got warned that it could be spotty the rest of the day. But I think we're in the all clear now, but if issues come up, I do apologize in advance for that. But in the meantime, let's jump right into the show here, and let's get started with a recap of Formula 3. Zane Maloney took pole position in qualifying, but it was Franco Colapinto who took victory in the sprint race. Maloney's trident teammate Roman Stanek qualified alongside him on the front row, but faded to P4 in the sprint, but came back to win a chaotic feature race after a late pass on Oliver Behrman. Behrman would later receive a 20-second time penalty for causing a collision, which dropped him down to 17th. I also want to note American Jack Crawford followed Stanek past Behrman on the final lap to take second place. He also finished third in the feature race as well. So, Josh, first of all, like I said, great to see you again. I want to get your overall reaction to the F3 race weekend. What did you make of the racing that we saw?
Some very close racing, some very hard racing as well. The sprint race was chaotic after the grid. Oh, thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. That's very nice to see. First of all, I must apologise for not being in my studio. I'm actually in my room against a nice backdrop. I thought it's a bit of a difference. I'll be back for the studio permanently next week. The Formula 3 race was very exciting. Of course, the sprint race happened on the Saturday with a completely mixed up grid because of what we saw with rain affecting Friday practice and Friday qualifying. So that messed up the grid for the feature race, and it messed up the grid for the sprint because the top 10 got reversed. So it was some fantastic action, and Colapinto coming across to take the win was completely unexpected at the last corner because of what happened with Cohen spinning out as well. And feature race, Roman Stanek, as you said, fighting back after a poor sprint to take the win. Crawford P2 as well. Arguably, he should have been P2 the day before because the results of the sprint race put him second, 0.000 at the line with the driver finished second in the sprint race. I actually found out that the fourth number after the decimal point was 7. So it was 7 milliseconds between the top two as they crossed the line. That's because at Imola, the finish line is on a curve. So if you're on the inside and on the very outside, you're going to be level because of where the line is. It's very weird. It's all that space stuff as well, that a straight line isn't the straight line. Like, with the curvature of the Earth, if you have a 17.3 degree angle and a straight line you shine a torch through and a camera receives at the other end, no matter, you won't see that angle at 17.3. The camera won't pick up the light. But if you raise it to 23 with the light at 17, you'll see the light. It's the same thing as how the finish line works at Imola. So some confusing weekends to work out, but some very close racing. But I just don't think that Imola suited Formula 3 as much. The sausage curves were quite high. We're seeing some jumping up, especially at the start in slippery conditions for both races. So I think there's some work to be done on the track. But other than that, it was an exciting weekend for the second weekend of Formula 3.
And since we have a large American audience here at Grid Network, I do want to highlight Jack Crawford's run. I know, Josh, last time you were on the Encore show, we were talking quite a bit about potential future American hopefuls for getting an American driver on the F1 grid. There's been a fair amount of hype surrounding Crawford right now. Do you think F1 is an attainable goal for him? We'll go to you first, and then we'll bring in Brandon as well on this one.
Oh, absolutely. From what we saw this weekend as well, with 2 podiums as well, I think he is absolutely Formula 1 material. I see something in him that I don't usually see in junior drivers, and that is maturity. He was very mature with his drives as well. Some fantastic overtakes he was going for, risky overtakes, but that of world champions. So I think Jack Crawford is definitely one to look forward to. And you were right, we were talking about it when we were had the IndyCar season opener in Indy Lights as well. And we were talking about everyone returning there as well. And I think Crawford's really made an impression, both in Bahrain and more of an impression here in Imola. I can't wait to see what he does in Barcelona as well when we hit Europe and see how he does in the Central Europe tracks. Because, of course, Emilia-Romagna is in Italy. It is the first European race, but you've got a break now of a month before we hit the normal season, where we go to Barcelona, Monaco, Azerbaijan, all that lot. So it's going to be fun to see. And I think if he can master these as well, and I definitely see him in Formula 2 next year, for absolute sure. I see him in F2. Because if you don't snap him up, it'll be wasted talent. And I think I can see him at a top team. Arguably, I can see him more at McLaren than any other team right now. I think they'll take him into the driver program, because I think right now he's with Prema at Red Bull, isn't he? As things stand, but we all know how that works out with Red Bull development drivers. They never get to Formula One, and even if they do, they don't last against Supermax for very long.
Yeah, Joshua, it's definitely going to have to be an F2 move for Jack Crawford coming up next year. And the same way we look at Logan Sargent in F2, you got to look at Jack Crawford in F3. And with that Red Bull backing, he's just a young kid from just outside of Houston, Texas. It's really crazy that from some roots like that, your parents can get you over into the European ladder, and just all of a sudden you are on the radar to be one of the top drivers in the world from America. And with Andretti Global coming up in 2024, there's definitely going to be some spots to be very highly sought after for American drivers, including Crawford, Logan Sargent, and Colton Herta as well.
Well, Josh, just getting back to what you were saying, I think the Red Bull program is very boom or bust. It's boom if you're Sebastian Vettel. It's bust if you're Sebastian Bourdais or Scott Speed or somebody like that. Two very talented drivers, but they got thrown into Toro Rosso, and it was kind of doomed from the start with each of their situations. Never really had a chance to show what they could do in an F1 car, but went on to have a lot of success in other disciplines, and had other success in other disciplines, certainly in Bourdais' case, before he even got there, being a 4-time Champ Car champion. So, I don't know that a Red Bull seat would be in Crawford's future necessarily. We've even seen it with Carlos Sainz was a Red Bull driver with Toro Rosso, and now he's bounced around from Renault to McLaren. Now he's at Ferrari. But certainly I would hope that there could be an opportunity, especially with Andretti Global coming in, for Crawford to be able to find a seat at some point.
Yeah, and the problem was as well, when Bourdais came into Formula One, he was treated just like as a rookie, because even though he was a Champ Car champion as well and did so much over in America in their racing series, when Bourdais came in, everyone looked at him and was like, "Oh, why is he here? Why, he's too old for Formula One. He's not gone through the proper channels to get there." But he was a real breakthrough, as to say that you've come over. He was akin to me for Villeneuve. They'd done so much in America in their top series and come over to Formula One, and we saw flashes of Bourdais, what he was capable of. And I think if he was put in the Red Bull alongside Vettel in 2009 and Webber was dropped, I think Bourdais would have actually made the season and would have been a very, very competitive driver, maybe even a world champion. He certainly still has the raw speed. We see it to this day. So I think Bourdais definitely is a lost talent. I think we should use him as a stark reminder that if we don't use the talent from all over the world, not just the European drivers, then we're going to be in a very bad situation when we call ourselves a world championship, because we're ignoring, we're not racing in Africa, we're ignoring the American drivers. We've only got one Australian on the grid. We've got to do better. We really do. And the world talent is unbelievable. We've seen Adam's going to talk about it later in the supercars, but how good would it be to see Shane Van Gisbergen in an F1 race? He's fast enough. He can do it. Valentino Rossi from MotoGP. He was quicker than Schumacher in 2004. People say he should have done the move then. I think he should have. Now, he's not going to do it, obviously, but you look at in the MotoGP field at riders who could make the switch over to four wheels and be world champion. I think Quartararo could do it. I think Bagnaia could do it. You just got to take the unusual route and just see where you end up, and it would work. I think I'm liking that. Alonso broke down that barrier. He did IndyCar, did WEC, tried the Triple Crown. He's broken down that barrier now, and I think it's about time we use that to the advantage to get drivers from all over the world back into motorsport. Let's get the Arrow McLaren Schmidt Peterson boys in the McLarens of F1 and get them in testing. Let's see what they got.
It's good.
Yeah, I think it's great to have McLaren have teams in both series, and Andretti. Hopefully, this Andretti Global project goes through and gets confirmed there. Also, looking at you brought up a great point about Villeneuve as well. I think it's very rare that we see drivers take the American path kind of to F1, where IndyCar is like your last stepping stone. You spend a couple of years there, you prove yourself in the American single-seater series, and then you find an F1 drive. I don't know if Colton Herta is going to be able to buck that trend. I'm sure he will if Andretti Global gets approved, like I mentioned. But I know Joseph Newgarden. There were some conversations. He was on the grid, I think, in 2017 with Gene Haas. Will Buxton was doing one of his last grid walks with NBCSN and was saying, so Gene, you're going to have a conversation with Joseph about getting him in one of your cars, right? Because Joseph wants to do that at some point before he hangs the helmet up. So it's going to be interesting. I hope that there are some opportunities for each of those guys, but Herta, I think, is certainly another one that we need to keep an eye on. And on that note, we have another comment from Joe in the chat room. With Andretti Global status still unsure because of the approval needed, can they make the case their team would ensure a higher chance of the F2 champion getting a seat? This is another conversation that we've had on the show a couple of times as well. So, Josh, Brandon, I'll open up to both of you. What do you think of that?
I reckon that's a very good point as well that Joe's brought up, and I hope it's true that it would happen if they do get the F2 and F3 seats like they want, that they bring their talent up. If they play it right, Andretti, what they could do here is have one experienced driver as on a contract. So have one world champion, get a world champion, put him in as the lead driver, probably someone who's close to retirement. So let's say get Seb in. Seb, we know he's not going to last forever at Aston. There's rumours around him I'll get on to just after the F2. So get Seb in. He's a 4-time champion. He loves nurturing the younger drivers, the younger talent. Get him as a fixture for a couple of seasons. Get the F2 champion alongside him, but only sign him for a year. So you have this pressure, but the F2 driver's got 1 year to show what he can do in a good competitive car, and then send him off to another team in Formula One. See how he gets on. So we need that sort of stepping stone to get them in. So they could take the F3 champion, the F2 champion, and bang. So the F3 goes to F2, F2 goes to F1, and keep that on a rotation every year. And if you want to be picky as well, throw in W Series as well. Get Jamie Chadwick into F3 in your second car, put her in F2 in your second car, and then throw her in Formula One on a half-season contract, something like that, and see what she can do up there. Just let's use... That's something that I think Andretti would like to do, and I'd like to do it, using their second seat as a stepping stone. I think it would work brilliantly, because then you've got the mentoring of a world champion and young blood. I think that's a winning combination. Really is. Get the car right, get it off Ferrari or Red Bull with their powertrains, and you've got a winning formula right there. So if the Andrettis are smart, that's a winning combination in my books.
Yeah, it's no secret that the level of talent is really high in F2, and their available seats is way too low in F1. So, I mean, it's definitely a great case for Andretti.
Yeah, well, and I think there's been a lot of talk about, Jamie Chadwick is a 2-time defending W Series champion, and that series has been controversial right from the start, because this is one of the few sports where men and women aren't separated, in competition. But the W Series, the argument for it is that it gives an opportunity to people that might not have it otherwise. But Chadwick's situation is different now because she's a 2-time defending champion. She's proven herself. She deserves the opportunity to move up, and yet there's no opportunity for her to do so. But where W Series has given her a chance to come back, I think this is something that Formula 2, I've always been saying, should look into. You're allowed to come back and defend your title in the W Series. So bare minimum, Jamie Chadwick has a place to be racing this year, whereas Oscar Piastri is stuck in a reserve role with Alpine because there's no room for him on the F1 grid. And, in NASCAR as well, like I mentioned, there's been plenty of back-to-back Xfinity champions who didn't have the opportunity to move up, or also maybe felt that they weren't ready to move up. They wanted another season in Xfinity just to continue to gain experience there. So I think at bare minimum, Chadwick does have that opportunity, but Piastri doesn't. And he might have had that opportunity if there had been an 11th team on the grid that opened 2 seats up. So I think that's a really good point by Joe here. And we have another follow-up. In my opinion, if F1 wants to hold on to the American public attention long-term, 2 American teams, Andretti and Haas, and at least 2 American drivers. I think you're going to get 2 American drivers because I think Andretti have hinted at an all-American lineup. And certainly Haas feel much more like an American team than they had last year with Mazepin and the Russian flag on the livery and everything. But I think it also helps that Haas are certainly much stronger this year than they were last year and even in 2020 as well. Kevin Magnussen's done a phenomenal job coming back in to that team.
Yeah, I think K-Mag was one of my shining moments for the first 4 races we've had now, because Australia, he didn't have a great weekend. He was outside the points, but at least he finished. And in the sprint race, he got points. And the main race, of course, the Grand Prix got points. So technically, you could say he got points, a lot of points in the first 4 races. He's thrown Haas right back up there. We must know Schumacher's still struggling right at the back of the field. I think just shows the pure talent that K-Mag has. He's thrown that car and he's always in the top 10. Russell too. He's dragging that dog of a Mercedes at the moment round, and he's getting a top 5 finish in every single race. And that is it's exciting because Magnussen he's still one of the young guys. He's still up there. He may look like old with the beard. I don't want to talk, but he's still one of the young guys, and it's nice to see that they're latching on to the top points and the older generation is starting to fall back again. I mean, would you ever thought we were talking about Hamilton as one of the older generation when he came in? I still think of him as 2007. But this is fantastic to see some real good teams, and especially Haas. It's a good news story for Formula One. The regulation change has saved the sport without a doubt. And that's not to say, oh, good, Mercedes are now doing bad, because I really want to see Mercedes doing good. But regulations have made a big improvement. They've brought everyone closer together. And I think by the end, certainly this season, it's development year. I think 2023 already is going to be absolutely insane. I can't wait for what the future of Formula One. Finally, it's in good hands.
And let's not forget what Kevin Magnussen did in Australia in 2014 with that epic podium on debut. That was something special. So he's always had the talent. He's just needed an opportunity to showcase it. And it's fortunate that Haas have had that open up. Not something within their control, I would say, that gave him that opportunity. But great to see K-Mag get another chance to show what he can do, even if it was a bit unexpected. So let's go ahead and keep the show going now. We'll move on to the Formula 2 section of the program here. It was Yuri Vips who qualified on pole position for the feature, but finished outside the points in both the sprint and the feature race, so a rough weekend for him. Marcus Armstrong picked up the win in the sprint race. He passed Logan Sargent on the start and took victory ahead of Jahan Daruvala and Dennis Hauger. And in the feature, it was Teo Porcher who took the win, followed by Enzo Fittipaldi. Great to see him back, and Ralph Boschung rounding off the podium there. Now, heartbreak for Roy Nissany, who looked like he might be on course for his maiden victory. Nissany crashed out while he was leading the race. So, Josh, what was your reaction to seeing that? How heartbreaking is this for the Williams test driver who's still looking for his maiden win? And what is it going to take for him to bounce back, put this behind him, and maybe go out and get that win in the future?
Me not being in the commentary box right there. It was my fault. Sorry, commentator's curse. I think Alex Jakes did it as well, actually, because on the timing screen before we saw the crash, it flashed up he was coming into the pit lane. And I said, there was a yellow flag. I said, yellow flag's on. Oh, and Roy Nissany, he's coming to the pit lane. Brilliant timing. If that turns into a safety car. And all of a sudden the picture changes and it's like, no, it's Nissany. He's caused the crash. Really strange accident as well. And my fault and Alex Jakes'. So we'll share responsibility on that. But that was heartbreaking. He had the best start I've ever seen in my life. He started 6th on the grid. Hauger and I can't remember who it was now. Let me check. Doohan. Hauger and Doohan came across each other completely by accident. They both went one way and made contact, put Hauger out the race. Doohan retired eventually with the suspension failure after he ran into the back of Vips as well. So Vips had a weekend from hell. But it was really odd to see as well from the point of view that Nizani went from 6th to 1st in the first 3 turns. That's a Senna-esque start. And he was lightning away. It was damp for the start of the F2. Slipped up the inside line, went on the outside, and before even turn 1 at Tamburello, done, in the lead. Brilliant. And then he pitted under green flag conditions, fell to 7th, then fell back to 9th when everyone else came into the pit lane in front of him. So he ended up as the net leader of the race, and he was catching the runners who were still out there on the medium compound tyre, because 9 drivers started on mediums. The rest of the field started on the super softs as well. So the medium runners who were going longer and longer, waiting for the rain to come, were still out there. He was catching them a lot quicker. Got on the exit curve at Ravazza, hit the bump, got on the wet grass when he tried to accelerate, and it spat him into the pit wall. Exactly what Sainz did, exactly what we saw Mulaney do in the Formula 3 restart procedure. It's just so simple to do, and it was heartbreaking, absolutely, because he had that race lead in the bag, and he had the race win in the bag. I think in terms of what's going to take for him to bounce back, he needs to forget Imola completely. It was a good try, but now he knows he can do it. He needs to put that into practice. Barcelona's coming up next. It's another hard track to overtake at. He needs to be wise on the strategy in the future race, have a better qualifying than he did, and see if he can do it again. Nizani will take a win at some point this season. I think that's going to be fantastic to see again, back on the podium. And you mentioned, of course, the Opel chair. He looked into the race win as well. Literally looked in as well, because Nizani crashed out. And then it was absolute heartbreak as well for Djokovic and Sato, because they were the last on the medium runners, and they hadn't made their pit stop. 35 lap feature, mandatory pit stop. They waited until the last possible second because the rain was in the air, and several virtual safety cars came out. But of course, in Formula 2, you can pit under the virtual safety car, but it doesn't count as your mandatory pit stop. So they had to wait. And literally, the last accident we had was caused by Lawson, I believe. Or, checking it, could be Williams, Callum Williams, I think, because he completed 90% of the distance. Either way, the last crash happened, the virtual safety car came out, and then just as Dragovic and Sato came across the pit entrance, the race director decided to throw the full safety car, and you can make your mandatory pit stop under the safety car. So the race director, once again, for the second time this year in Formula 2, like he did with Dennis Hauger in the feature race in Saudi Arabia, played God with the race result, and I didn't like that. And I felt very sorry for Djokovic and Sato. They had a first and second stolen from them due to coincidental timing of the safety car, which I don't like that much. So Porsche was handed a victory. Enzo was second, which was great to see him back on the podium after his injury in Jeddah last year. And Boschong in third was a very happy podium. But I think it was a bit of a bitter taste for me from race direction. It was all over the place this weekend in the Junior Series, and it needs to improve. If F1 has managed to improve their race direction, I think it's time the F2 race director gets a refresher course on how to handle safety cars.
Well, Josh, thanks as always for joining us. I understand, I think you mentioned something briefly about Sebastian Vettel. Is there anything you wanted to mention since you weren't on the show yesterday? Any other F1 stories you want to cover real quick before we let you go here?
Yes, and this is a biggie as well. And this is rumor at the moment, but there's a lot of stories coming up with this. So take this with a bit of pinch of salt. But for those of you who know who Eddie Jordan is as well, he always made these bold predictions, and he's got about 70% of them right. So here's my go. There's a rumor going around the paddock that there is going to be a driver change between two teams, that they're going to swap drivers over. And from what I've heard, it's going to be Sebastian Vettel leaving Aston Martin at the midway point of the season and going to Haas to replace Mick Schumacher. And Mick Schumacher will go to Aston Martin for the second half of the season. Okay. Now, this is all because Sebastian Vettel is retiring from Formula One at the end of the season. That is what I'm hearing. That Vettel is said this is going to be his last year, and he wants to make sure that Mick has a competitive car going forward. So Seb obviously has enough hope in Aston that they'll have their car fixed, and that is the current rumour, that Aston are going to buy Schumacher out of his Haas contract and are going to put him in the Aston Martin. And I think it's because they desperately want Schumacher, who is a very fast driver, in their factory car with a Mercedes engine. So the rumor going around the paddock is that Sebastian Vettel will retire at the end of the season in the mid-season break. So after Hungary and before Belgium, he'll go to Haas to finish off the season, and Mick Schumacher will take over the Aston Martin. That's what I've been hearing. It was yesterday we heard that there was going to be a driver change, and it was today, after many talking with journalists at the moment and many talking with team personnel as well at Aston Martin, who have the feeling that this is going to happen. So there's the rumor. I've broken it now.
And these are all just rumors, right? Let's just
these are all just rumors.
That's not an announcement or anything.
No. All rumours at the moment. This is what I've been hearing from the paddock as well. But there's a lot of facts behind it, and I'm expecting news around about Monaco because there's a lot to work out with it. So keep across the Grid Network because this is where our big panel of journalists comes in handy. But if true, guys, this is fantastic news that Seb is going to go to Haas, but Mick's going to go to Aston. A sideways step, I feel. What's your opinion if that is the fact?
Well, I've got a rumor. Brandon, you want to go first?
I mean, that's true. That's really respectful and very stoic of Sebastian Vettel. Very, very pro gamer move there. Sending it off into the sunset and giving a younger guy a better shot. A really, really nice move. That is true.
It doesn't surprise me that Vettel might be retiring. You know, he's got nothing to prove left in Formula One. I know he probably wishes he could have gotten at least one championship with Ferrari, but a four-time world champion, third all-time on the Grand Prix wins list. Legend of the sport, certainly well-deserved if this is his swan song season. But I've got to say, Vettel in a Haas, that sounds like something that you get on a driver transfer on the F1 game. That's going to take some getting used to, even if it's only for the back half of the season. And I got to tell you, the way Kevin Magnussen's been running and, the struggles, Aston Martin just picking up their first points of the season, it obviously 12 months ago, that would have been a huge upgrade going to Aston Martin over the Haas. But, I think those teams are much closer now than I think a lot of people expected them to be. So how much of an upgrade would that really be for Mick Schumacher, at least in 2022? We'll see going forward after that. I'm sure Aston certainly have a much bigger budget to work with than the Haas team does. But, it's all about what you can do with that budget as well.
This is all because from what I've been thinking about, because I've been mulling this over all day, is the fact is that we've heard so many rumours that Haas might be leaving Formula One with the money and selling their team to Andretti as a way in. So if Haas don't want to continue, then Mick still wants a seat in F1, and Seb is very close with Mick as well. We've seen that at the end. He might want him to take the seat elsewhere. It's very, as you say, pro gamer move, very gentlemanly of Seb, but he is a very nice guy. I can only think that it must be because for Haas to have a world champion driving for them must be something that's just too alluring. It gives you what I was talking about earlier about, think about the amount of knowledge, the technical knowledge that Seb has to bring to a team like that. That could really help Haas. And alongside Magnussen for the second half of the year, that could set them up big time. And for Mick as well, it gives Aston some young blood and stability going forward alongside Stroll. They've both raced against each other in junior formula. They both know each other really well. I just got this feeling that it is. Obviously, it's rumour at the moment from what I'm hearing, but the more and more you talk about it, the more and more you think about it, the more and more it makes sense, the more and more everything fits together from what we've seen already this year in the paddock. So that's it. And if it is true, remember where you heard it first, because that's what we've been hearing all day, is that there's a driver change, and it's the leak was one surprising name and one not really surprising name is moving. And from what I understand, it is Seb moving to Haas and Mick moving to Aston at the midway point in the season. It's happened before with driver swaps. Alesi and Bertie did it as well. Jordan to Prost. Of course, the China Bertie then ended up in a coma, so arguably Alesi got the better end of the deal with two big accidents, one in Germany and one in Belgium in 2001. I'm trying to think of other, more recently, Verstappen and Kvyat swapping seats, Albon and Kvyat again as well, just moving around. So it's possible.
Albon and Gasly.
Yeah, Albon and Gasly, yeah.
Well, that's a little different because Red Bull owns both teams, so it's easier to make that direct swap. But
so I'm going to keep chasing this up, but I'm not going to stop, and hopefully I'll be having more news. Hopefully when the paddock returns in Miami. in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah. We got one more follow-up from Joe. Obviously, Aston Martin or Mercedes power team. So does that mean Schumacher will be leaving any sort of Ferrari ties that he's got?
Well, I think this is because Sainz has been locked in until 2024, as has Leclerc. So Schumacher would have to wait quite a number of years to get to Ferrari. I think he wants out of Haas quite quick. So unless he wants to go to Alpha with replacing Zhou and Bottas, that seems like a lock-in lineup. So I think Mick is already looking elsewhere. And of course, Mercedes engine, that links to a Mercedes seat if Lewis retires. And we know that Mercedes would snap up Mick Schumacher like that because of all the history between the families as well. And Mick is a very quick driver. And this is nice to see. So I'm hopeful that what we're hearing is true. And I think it'll be very interesting to see. So
yeah, we're going to keep an eye for around July or so to see if this holds any water. To say about Silverstone, we might get an announcement.
Yeah, I'll be ready to tag both Old Takes Exposed and They Already Knew on Twitter. We'll see which one we end up tagging here. But how crazy would that be? Just one more thing here. If Lewis Hamilton replaced Michael Schumacher at Mercedes, what if Mick Schumacher replaces Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes? So he replaced the father when he came in, and his son comes up to take his seat as he steps away from Formula One. That would just be wild.
It'd be so poetic. I'd love it. It's just like it's brilliant. And to use a Star Wars analogy, you've got Anakin Skywalker, Michael Schumacher. You've got Luke Skywalker as Mick Schumacher, and you've got Lewis Hamilton in there as Ray, just sort of separating them.
Oh boy!
I don't know about
the fandoms of the Schumachers. You've got that to sort of contend with. That's quite a funny way. But that would be lovely. What a way to bookend as well. And then, of course, if Mick goes on and gets world championships with the team, that'd be great. And it just makes sense as well. As I said, the more you think about it, because I've been mulling this over all day, and I've had, since I found out who it was, which was around about 9:30 this morning, I've had about 15 hours to mull it over. And the more you think about it, the more... on the web. See? Siri, we've been talking about. The more you think about it, the more it makes sense, the more the connections make. And of course, even yesterday, at the end of the race, you can hear some team radio. Sebastian said over the radio, "Do you know where Mick finished? Because he had a problem lap one." He's asking where he is, and suddenly it all makes sense as to why Mick and Seb are so close, so tight. And it's just fantastic. One German driver handing over to another German driver for success, exactly like Michael did in 2012 when he let Seb through without any fight to go for his third title in Brazil. I think that's why Seb sees it as sort of like saying thank you, just giving his boy a chance.
Absolutely.
Paying it forward.
Well, Josh, before we let you go, I know you weren't on the show yesterday, so I'll let you choose across the entire board here. But do you have a one shining moment from this weekend in motorsports?
My one shining moment, then, would have to go to Jake Hill in the British Touring Car Championship. I know you might not have seen it, but the British Touring Cars kicked off at Donington this weekend, and Jake Hill put it on pole position in the qualifying. He finished third in race one. Then he got disqualified from that race due to a ride height infringement because he hit the barrier and got a puncture. So the weighing roll couldn't go underneath the car because it was bent. So he got disqualified, had to start from the back of the grid at race two, fought his way back up into ninth place. It's a 30-car grid for 16 laps around a short track. He got up to ninth. Great job. And then the series director, Alan Gow, picked him as the random number for the reverse grid pole position for race three. So he's on pole again. He took away and took race three victory. So he got some points back on the weekend, and now he's lying third in the championship after the ending weekend. So it just proves that you may be down, but you're certainly not out of a race weekend. So Jake Hill, for keeping his head cool, is my one shining moment this weekend.
That's fantastic. Well, Josh, thanks again. Certainly a great update. We'll have to keep an eye on that. That would be talk about a silly season, in-season move. Like I said, something that sounds like it's straight out of a driver transfer on F1 2021 career mode, but we'll see if it ends up coming true here. And thanks again, as always. And I know we'll see you soon.
Absolute pleasure. And indeed, see me again soon because I'll be back in I presume Miami on the Encore to talk about W Series, unless that's featured in the main show. Not too sure what it is yet. If not, Barcelona.
Well, it's on the grid ranking, so I'm sure we will talk about it. But as always, if you want to come on the Encore show, we can spread a little bit more word about that. And obviously, with this new TV deal, I'm sure we'll certainly have no shortage of things to talk about. Miami's going to be such a massive weekend, especially for us here in the States, obviously. So you're welcome anytime.
Thank you very much.
All the best across the pond.
Oh, say right back at you. Have a great rest of the day. And I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah, no, it's very late over there. So early in the morning, I guess I should say for you.
Yeah,
so.
roundabout.
All right. Have a good one, Josh.
You too. Bye, everybody.
See you.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's do a brief update on ARCA West here. Shift gears over to the stock car racing scene. And I want to give a call to Landon Lewis. His series debut goes out and takes victory at Kern County Raceway Park in what was a relatively clean race from start to finish. Jake Drew and Cole Moore finished behind in second and third for Sunrise Ford and Bill McAnally, respectively. Tanner Reef crossed the line in fourth. Pole sitter PJ Pedroncelli rounded out the top five. Also want to give a shout out to Todd Souza as well, making his 100th career West Series start and bringing it home in a solid sixth spot. Now, West is off for a little more than a month, but we will have two races back-to-back to open up the start of the month of June. On June 4th, the series joins the Xfinity Series in what's Grid Network's own backyard at Portland International Raceway. And then on June 11th, the West drivers will compete in what is arguably their version of the Daytona 500, their biggest race of the year at Sonoma. So certainly a lot to look forward to. And of course, schedule pending, Grid Network has some big plans for the Portland race weekend. So stay tuned on that front. I can't reveal everything just yet. We have to make sure everything gets squared away there. But it's certainly going to be exciting to see them on back-to-back road courses and see some drivers that maybe we don't normally get to talk about, give them a chance to shine as well. So let's move into, let's stay, I guess I should say, in the ARCA series, but move on to a completely different racetrack, Talladega Superspeedway. And it was Nick Sanchez who took his second career victory in the ARCA Menards Series, but it was kind of controversial how it all happened. We'll get to that in a second. First and foremost, I want to send my best to Scott Melton. I know he had a leg injury in that serious crash. I guess the ARCA's version of the big one that they had in their race, and it was certainly a hard hit for Scott. And there's a video on the Kimmel team's Facebook page. You almost wonder how he didn't do more damage with the accident. It was a vicious hit, and certainly want to send our best to him. We look forward to seeing him back at the track soon. But let's talk about that controversy with the race ending there. 14 laps to go. We got a call from race control saying that it was going to be the final restart of the race, and it was the next flag, yellow or checkered, whichever one came first, that was going to end it no matter what. And the reason that we were told this was because they were running up on the TV window. Xfinity was on the big broadcast Fox network, but that race wasn't scheduled to start for 80 minutes at the time that they made this call with only 14 laps to go. Brandon, I want to ask you, do you have a problem with how ARCA handled the final laps at Talladega?
Well, Ben, I might take a little issue to that. I asked this one simple question. What are we doing? It's the sport of auto racing. We're not making, Monday Night Raw here, and we're waiting on the next event to take place. And we're not going to shorten the sport just so you can fit your TV window before we get to the Xfinity race, which, like you said, was 80 minutes away, or 80 minutes before even before starting. I mean, that's unacceptable. The graphic reads 14 laps to go, but they're talking, okay, or 9 laps to go, and like, okay, well, at the moment of caution, that's the end of it. But yeah, I'd like to give my well wishes to Scott Melton as well. And I saw that video that you sent of the footage of the car results. They cut the body over on the top half to show a little more detail of what really Scott was looking at there. And of course, one of his legs broken, but luckily, I mean, he was lucky not to have both legs, or even worse, something happened. I mean, that car was extremely safe, but man, it came awful close.
Yeah, reminds me of Kyle Busch with his accident at Daytona in 2015. Just the front end completely shoved in, and obviously he broke his leg and his foot in both legs in that accident. So certainly, Scott, very fortunate that it wasn't worse than it was, and obviously completely echo your sentiment there. Getting back to the controversy here, I think what are we doing is absolutely a perfect response there. It's just unbelievable to me that race control made a call like this, and I don't even know where to begin. I don't know why we're holding this race on a Saturday afternoon if we're that concerned about running up close to the broadcast window. The race used to be on Friday. You had a practice session on Friday. Why not just hold the race on Friday and then have unlimited time? I guess not completely unlimited because Talladega doesn't have lights, but give yourself more than enough of a window to get the race done. If you were that set in stone that you had to make sure that we don't go over a certain time limit or something like that, shave 10 laps off the race, say we're not going to do any overtimes, we're just going to run the race to its completion. But don't
like you should, by the way.
Yeah, like you should. Yeah. We've gotten into that on the show before too. You can't say with 14 laps to go, there could be 14 laps to go, there could be 10 laps to go, there could be half a lap to go. They could crash on the restart and we could end it right there. It just doesn't make any sense to me how you're supposed to race, how you're supposed to strategize. And speaking of strategy as well, Roger Caruso, I believe, made the call to start from a lane that he made that call for before they made this call that this was going to be the final restart. So would that have changed Raja's decision as to what he wanted to do as the control car? So, race control in my mind here completely fumbled the bag. And also, this is completely unethical. I'm not endorsing this at all, but if I'm in this race, I'm running in second going down the backstretch. What's stopping me from just hooking the leader in the left rear quarter panel, sending them spinning into the infield? I'm the lead car. That's the caution. I win the race, right? Like I said, it's completely unethical, and I'm sure drivers would get a lot of criticism for that. But from a strategy standpoint, isn't that the move? You're going to win the race that way, right?
And that's probably why they don't do it, is because they know the criticism that's going to follow. But man, don't let any ARCA drivers catch wind of your idea here, because that might take place.
Well, hopefully they won't need to, because this isn't going to happen again. They'll see the backlash from the decision that they made, and they won't go through with this again. But just bizarre. Every year this race, with the limited car counts and things going wrong, every year I think something more bizarre can't happen, and I'm proven wrong. It's just crazy what we saw to end the race there. Corey Heim, he said in his post race interview he was very disappointed in how race control called that, and I think a lot of fans and team personnel on social media were as well.
Emperor Lemon is right. It's the Native American burial under the track. It causes these weird things to happen every time.
Yeah, the track is certainly cursed. I know NASCAR race control has been known to make some strange decisions in the past, but this might be a new one for the record books. That was just bizarre to know that this could be the final lap with 13 to go and then 12 to go and then 11 to go, and just I don't even know how you do you try to hold back and wait to make your move, or it just I really don't know what words to come up with to describe how you strategize when these are the rules. And in fairness, it is the same rule book and set of rules for everybody on a level playing field, but that doesn't change my opinion that they certainly dropped the ball in this case.
Yeah, that's messed up, and it's just clearly an issue that they see their broadcast window more important than the what word am I looking for? The truthfulness of the race, the integrity of the race. There you go. Yep.
Yeah. I think some integrity was certainly sacrificed there. And again, what difference does it make if you're 50 minutes or 60 minutes away from the window? I really don't understand what they were going for there.
Again, like we've been talking about the last few weeks with Fox Broadcasting, there's somebody screaming in your ear saying, there's somebody from Fox, executive from Fox, is screaming into the race control's ear, hey, cut it off.
Yeah. Well, speaking of control here, I want to bring in our supercars expert, Adam Lemerise, who's been waiting patiently backstage listening to
where did you come from?
All of this. Adam, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I can say I've enjoyed the broadcast so far, and I actually haven't. I remember when the
go ahead.
I remember when the ARCA race was on Friday afternoon at Talladega, and it was good for the fans because you had racing, and I think the ARCA Series should move the race back to Friday, like you guys were mentioning. I think you had. I mean, you could have run this whole race and still had time, to get over, to go over, on the ARCA race over to the Xfinity race. I mean, to me that was crazy, and hopefully Fox learned their lesson, and hopefully it never happens again, no matter what track you go to.
You always wonder how much of a say TV and executives in the suits behind the production teams for the television broadcast partners, how much of a say do they have in race control? If it's any more than 0, I think we have a bit of a problem here, because, under normal circumstances, go back 50, 60 years when these races wouldn't have been televised, you wouldn't even be considering making a call like this. You would just delay the start. And again, not even convinced that you would have to have delayed the start, because there was a full hour at least between the end of the race for the ARCA Series and the start of the race for the Xfinity Series. So I don't know what they were so concerned about with just 14 laps to go. I know it's Talladega. I know caution laps take a long time, but we had one major accident. Aside from that, I thought the race was relatively clean up until that point. So, just a bizarre situation. And Adam, like you said, hopefully they get something resolved there, because I do not want to see that happen again. I think Brandon, like you mentioned, sacrificing the integrity of the race and just making a call that really doesn't make a lot of sense. I've had over 48 hours now to take it in and try to make sense of it, and I can't do it. So
when they were calling it like that, I thought the ticker was broken on the laps to go ticker. I thought something must be wrong. It's not laps to go.
I still don't understand it either, guys. And like I said, hopefully this never happens again. Hopefully Fox learned their lesson. It was crazy. It was just crazy.
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm liking the race day stage being back of a track. I liked.
Amen.
I liked that Fox and NBC cooperated with each other.
Amen.
And let Dale Jr. on the broadcast this weekend. But I think there are certainly some problems behind the scenes, behind the camera, that still need a lot of attention, and hopefully those can get resolved. We have to keep in mind, it's got to be baby steps. When there's a lot of issues with something, you don't just fix it all overnight. So I'm happy to see that Fox have taken some steps. I think that the race day set is great, more interactive, throwback to the Speed Channel days. I'm not saying, I'm not expecting, I don't even know if the sport's big enough to justify a traveling like college game day style set like Fox used to do in the day with Speed, I guess I should say. I forget when exactly Fox and Speed kind of merged there and overlapped, but we're not going to go back to that, obviously. But these things for the Cup races and a more in-depth studio and sending your truck broadcasters to the track, which they're doing now in the first half. I got to wait to see if that's going to keep up during the second half when NBC takes the Cup and Xfinity schedules. We'll just have to wait and see what happens there. So moving on to the Xfinity Series, it was Noah Gragson who picked up the win, the 7th of his career and the 2nd of the season for the number 9 team. And this puts Gragson second in both the playoff grid and the straight up point standings. So Adam, we will start with you here on this one. I know you wanted to talk about Jeffrey Earnhardt's story tonight. We'll get to that. I do believe we should talk about the winner first, though. How about Noah Gragson and the start to the season that he's having? What do you make of all that?
Noah Gragson, to me, is a championship 4 contender, and he drives for a very good team in the Xfinity Series, Junior Motorsports, and he has some good, solid teammates, most notably Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, and Josh Berry. Right now, Junior Motorsports is, I think, they're one of the top Xfinity teams out there, and they showed it on Saturday. I think Noah Gragson is going to be at Phoenix in November as one of the championship 4 contenders. And right now, Noah Gragson is on another level. He has been solid all season long, And I don't anticipate that to change whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool whenever the guy that wins on Saturday in the Xfinity Series still has a cup ride for Sunday. He had that Beard Motorsports entry in the 62 with the Wendy's sponsorship. And I was noting how I don't know if Wendy's has ever been in the sport, but it was nice to see some more fast food competition in the mix. But yeah, Noah Gragson, I agree with you, Adam. He's going to be in November fighting for a championship in Phoenix. And Junior Motorsports, of course, top class of the field in the Xfinity Series, along there with Joe Gibbs Racing. There's no doubt about that. And I think he's shaved off a few seconds on his lap time with taking the mullet off at the beginning of the season.
Yep, agree, Brandon.
Yeah, I think Wendy's has done some one-offs with some lower series here and there before, but kind of out of nowhere to see them sign on with Beard Motorsports and a full-on Cup sponsorship at Talladega. I tweeted something that we should try to get a BK Racing back for a one-off so we could have had all three with McDonald's on Bubba Wallace's car. Even though Burger King had nothing to do with that team whatsoever, in reality, it was just one franchisee who bought the remnants of the Red Bull team. I think there's a Slap Shoes video on that if you want to go down that rabbit hole. We don't need to go down it here.
There is.
But let's talk about a story that certainly got a lot of attention, and for very good reason here. Jeffrey Earnhardt certainly made the most of a fantastic opportunity driving Richard Childress Racing's number 3 car. He's the grandson of Dale Earnhardt Sr., the son of Kerry Earnhardt, the nephew of Dale Earnhardt Jr., took pole position and followed it up with a runner-up finish, ironically, to one of the cars from his uncle's Junior Motorsports team. So, Brandon, we'll go to you first on this one. We've seen Jeffrey have some solid runs with Joe Gibbs and the limited opportunities he got with Toyota in 2019. Did he prove this weekend that he deserves another opportunity with a top team in the Xfinity Series?
I mean, I can't speak for all of his skill all around the board, but when it comes to his super speedway skills, he gets those genes right from the Earnhardt family. Just phenomenal job from Jeffrey with the opportunity he was given with Richard Childress equipment. They had that thing looking just like the Intimidator, and it was very aesthetically pleasing, but also he had a good result to go along with it. Came out with the pole and finished second right behind Noah, and really had a good shot there on that outside line to take the win. And maybe if he had a little more push, he could have been there for a closer shot at it. But yeah, he's gonna need another shot with RCR, and I hope it comes from RCR. The first place I learned about Jeffrey Earnhardt, I think, was from his Hulu show. He had with the Hulu sponsorship back in 2018. I guess with the tie-in with this. Yeah, what was it? 2018?
2017. Yeah.
17. Okay. Yeah. Well, the tie-in with the sponsor, they gave him a season of his own little documentary, and he's just like any other driver out there that's just fighting for their shot there, and he works hard. He works just as hard as the rest of them, and I think he tries to not let his namesake get in the way of things, and that's really a cool part of his story. And I think if NASCAR as a whole is smart about this opportunity, they're going to give Jeffrey another shot the same way we saw this past weekend. It definitely is healthy for the sport to keep family names going, and I saw the line for signatures for Jeffrey. It was pretty long.
And who was Jeffrey Earnhardt's crew chief on Saturday?
Larry Mack.
Exactly, Brandon. Yeah. And Larry Mack is from Alabama, and he was Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s crew chief, as well as Davey Allison's crew chief for a long time. And if I'm RCR Racing, I get Jeffrey Earnhardt in a car at the remaining super speedway races, because what we saw on Saturday, he can contend for a win. And if there were just a few more laps in that race, I think we could have been talking about Jeffrey Earnhardt winning his first career Xfinity race. To me, Jeffrey Earnhardt, it was just awesome to see what Jeffrey Earnhardt did, having Larry Mack being a crew chief again. And that, it was just awesome. So it probably brought back a lot of memories for a lot of fans, And actually, the number 3 car actually finished second in the Xfinity race on Saturday, and Austin Dillon finished second in the number 3 car on yesterday. So came close to seeing the black number 3 back in victory lane in Sweet Home, Talladega, Alabama.
Yeah, well, and Brandon, you brought up a good point as well about Jeffrey, not wanting to kind of ride the Earnhardt name to these opportunities. I think he made one start with Junior Motorsports in 2013, somewhere around that time frame. Finished 17th at Richmond, if I recall correctly. But other than that, he drove for DEI back when in the K&N series, back when they were going through Dale Jr. departing, and they were never really the same after that, obviously. And ever since then, he's kind of been clawing on with small team after small team, trying to make the most of any opportunities he gets. And then in 2019, he got this deal with Toyota and Extreme Concepts, and Joe Gibbs agreed to put him in the car for a handful of races. And unfortunately, that deal fell through before the season even came to a close. He did have one third place finish and 3 top 10s throughout the season. So, he certainly showed that with this, at this point in his career, the experience he's got, if he gets another opportunity with a top team, he can certainly make the most of it. And I think we only saw further proof of that on Saturday. So I think if you're RCR, you certainly have to be looking at, how can we get this guy back in the car? Certainly at Daytona, if not for a handful of other races as the season continues. But, certainly a great run for Jeffrey. Great to see the Earnhardt name back up front of the field. And to Talladega, of all places, I'm sure it was, like you mentioned, Adam, brought back a lot of memories for a lot of people on Saturday. Now, scrolling down the rest of the leaderboard here, you see AJ Allmendinger continued that top 10 streak, keeping that alive. He finished in third, winning the $100,000 Dash for Cash bonus. Allmendinger, like I mentioned, also keeps the top 10 streak going. His worst finish of the season so far is only 9th at Las Vegas. So with that in mind, at risk of overusing a term that I think has been thrown around quite a bit in recent years in NASCAR, but the big three. Do you see a big three forming between Allmendinger, who's yet to finish outside of the top 10, Noah Gragson, who has several wins and top 3 finishes to start the season so far, and Ty Gibbs, who we've mentioned pretty much every week on this show with what he's done already in his limited Xfinity Series career? Adam, we'll go to you first on this one.
Oh yeah, and I think when it comes to championship, you're going to have to. When it comes to championship, you're going to have to beat all, not just one, not just 2, but all 3 of those drivers this year to capture the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship. AJ Allmendinger has been strong for College Racing. Noah Gragson has been strong for Junior Motorsports. And Ty Gibbs has been sensational at Joe Gibbs Racing. Those 3 are, to me, are the 3 best drivers in the NASCAR Xfinity Series right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 make the championship 4 in Phoenix. You're going to have to beat all those drivers to capture the Xfinity Series Championship this year.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think those 3 are going to be the 3 of the championship 4. The question is, who is that 4th going to be? And it either may be a wild card like Sam Mayer, or would be a good option. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see. But yeah, big 3. We won't overuse it too much. We'll try our best, Ben. But it's fair to use. I think the last time we really got to use it was the Harvick Busch Truex big 3 from 2017.
Well, I think when you look at these 3 drivers, if we want to call them a big 3 or not, being beside the point, these are 3 that you can pencil in as reliable, safe picks to probably make the championship 4. Of course, with how chaotic the playoffs can get, we can't say they're shoe-in locks yet. But, kind of to bounce off what you were saying, Brandon, if you had to pick a 4th driver to put in this group right now and say, this driver looks good, maybe we'll see them in the championship 4, at Phoenix, who do you think that is?
I mean, Austin Hill, maybe. I don't. There's too early to say still again, but Sam Mayer was the first one that came to my mind. But somebody from the Junior Motorsports or Joe Gibbs camp would be a safe bet.
I'll agree with that, Brandon. I think Justin Allgaier from Junior Motorsports, Josh Berry, Sam Mayer have been strong. Joe Gibbs has had a good start in the Xfinity Series so far this year. So I think the fourth driver to compete in the championship for will either come from Junior Motorsports or Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yeah, the two that came to my mind were Justin Allgaier and Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones has had a solid start to the season as well, and with the experience he's got under his belt at this point in his career, I think he might be a pick that might get in there and surprise some people. But if you want a reliable pick, I'd say Justin Allgaier is always a favorite to make the championship for. He's somebody that has really found a great home with Junior Motorsports, has been running solid. And, maybe Daniel Hemrick as well, the defending champion, even though he's at a new team, wouldn't be a surprise to see him get back into the championship for. He's been there with Childress and obviously winning a championship last year with Gibbs. Maybe we'll see him back with a shot to defend his championship. But that's all for this weekend. Adam, since we have you on the show, do you want to lead us in?
I sure will. It's now time for our Grid 1 shining moment from this motorsports weekend. So I'll throw it over to you, Brandon. What's your Grid 1 shining moment?
Well, as much as I don't really like the commentary about it on TV, no offense to Clint Boyer. I mean, he's a great guy, but my favorite part of the weekend, coming from a Davey Allison family, is seeing that Davey Allison 28 out there on the Talladega Superspeedway. That was a sight to behold, man. It's kind of the same feeling you got whenever you saw the Earnhardt car out there a couple of years ago.
I think that was Adams, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was, Ben, on last night. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to steal it from you.
Oh, no problem. It's called I Remember When Davey Allison ran his last race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Me, my mom, and my dad were there, and I'll still never forget it. It was just an awesome sight to see.
That's right. Well, forgive me for taking the easy one here that got extensive coverage this weekend anyway, but I love seeing the Earnhardt name back up front. It was great for Jeffrey to get that opportunity, and I'm going to make him my one shining moment to take pole position with Larry McReynolds on the crew chief box there as well. Just such a great story, and like I said, hopefully it leads to more opportunities for him as the season goes on. But to capitalize on pole position, come home with a second place finish, he certainly proved that he deserves another chance with a top team to show what he can do in the Xfinity Series. So I'll give my one shining moment to him.
Yeah, I'll agree with. I'll completely agree with you, Ben. It was just an awesome moment, to see the Earnhardt name back up front in Talladega, a track where Dale Earnhardt Sr. got his last career win. We all know the history of Dale Jr. winning in Talladega. We all know the history of Larry McReynolds. He was Davey Allison's crew chief. He was Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s crew chief. And it was just, awesome to see. And, and to see Clint, and also, it was truly awesome to see Clint Boyer driving an old school Davey Allison car. It brought back tears of joy to me, tears in my heart as well. So, what Jeffrey Earnhardt did at Talladega on Saturday was my Grid 1 shining moment as well. And I'll throw it over to Ben for the wrap up.
Yeah, certainly a lot to choose from this weekend. And like I said, hopefully Jeffrey gets another opportunity, and great to see Davey Allison's car out there as well. A lot of great things happening this weekend at Talladega. So that's going to do it for another episode of Grid Live Encore. Be sure to follow Grid Network on all our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to us right here on YouTube as well. Like on Facebook and Twitch and everything. I forget that we stream on other platforms as well. I know the majority of our audience comes from YouTube, but be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you never miss a new live stream or a new video. If you really like what you see, take 5 minutes after the show to invest in the Grid Network. You can join our Patreon And thanks, as always, of course, to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have already done so. If you'd rather just make a one-time donation, we have an option for that as well. You can buy me a coffee. And as always, thanks to Edward, Hunter, Amber, and Zach for already doing so on that front. Any amount will help us continue to grow this motorsports media outlet here at Grid Network. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent, whether it's anybody you saw tonight or anybody else at the Grid Network. Thanks to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDNET in the link below gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, Wednesday, Adam will be back with Kobe to host Grid Tonight. Thursday, Joe and Daniel will have the Women in Motorsports program. If you're an ARCA fan, you might want to tune into that one. There's been some interesting developments regarding Tony Breidinger and the Busch Advance Her sponsorship program that was announced at the start of the season. They will have some updates on that on Thursday. As always, we'll have Grid Live pre-race on Saturday and Grid Live wrap-up on Sunday. Brandon and I will see you right back here Monday night for another episode of Grid Live Encore. We'll have ARCA East and Xfinity at my home track at Dover Motor Speedway. And guess who's back? Indy Lights finally make their return for the second race of the season at Barber Motorsports Park. Gentlemen, any final words before we wrap up?
Thanks again for allowing me to be on here and talking about the Xfinity Series in Talladega. I was there a few years ago when Tony Stewart drove the number 33 Old Spice Chevrolet for Kevin Harvick Incorporated. He flipped right in front of where I was sitting on the front stretch. So I'll never forget that. And thanks again, as always, for having me on the show.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. As I said, for Joshua Burch, Adam Lemerise, and Brandon Crosslin, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks, as always, for watching. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time right here on the Grid Network.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on Public.com.